Alright, so the season finale for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, season one, or the Booyaka Showdown as it's called. I know this is a really late review. I missed it when it premiered Thursday, and I actually wasn't home. And when it was supposed to be a rerun, for some reason a different show came on, so someone screwed up their programming, so I wasn't able to see it until last night. But got home. I was happy to even record it because I didn't know it did. But recorded. I First thing I did was watch Ninja Turtles, and I guess the first thing to talk about is, it was a great season, as a whole, and of course, there were certain things that I knew were gonna happen at the end of the season. One of which being, Splinter versus Shredder, which I'll definitely get to because probably it's definitely one of my favorite parts of the season finale. But starting off with the guys in the sewer and Donnie figuring out that the Technodrome was coming, which it was really cool to me that they actually had the Technodrome. I didn't know they were really gonna call it that, but it was pretty sweet that they did. But Donatello figuring out the Krang are really interacting around, not interacting, but they're actually acting out their plan, and they have to save the planet, and things really get rolling in the beginning of the episode. And I like how they did it once the turtles went off to fight the Krang, with April, her dad, and Splinter. And April talking to Splinter, saying like, how come you're not going to help the turtles, like you're the master, and you said it yourself, like it's the fate of the world, anything could be sacrificed, just for the cause of the planet. And Splinter was having his own little inner turmoil, because I guess he knew in some way that he'd have to end up facing against the Shredder, or if he left, that he would end up facing against the Shredder. And he was like really mad, and I just thought that was a really interesting dynamic that they have for Splinter, because generally he's Splinter. He's really calm. He's teaching them. He gets mad at the turtles because they're fighting, or they disobey him because they're his kids. So it's the dynamic of parents and children. But in this, he was just mad because he had his own little inner struggle going on, and I believe it was because what he said to Leo, like, even though it's the fate of the world, anything and anyone should be sacrificed to save the planet. And I feel like that led him to think of his past with Shredder and losing his wife and daughter. And of course, the reveal that Karai was Splinter's daughter, there wasn't a surprise to me. And it's actually weird that I figured that out because of this show. Like the TMNT show, I'm sure they followed the same storyline, because I believe that was really close to the original comics. But I just never actually got that from TMNT. And as soon as I saw this one, the new Ninja Turtles, when they had the episode where Splinter was teaching April, I think it was after Karai was revealed. She wasn't in that episode, but he was talking about losing his wife and daughter, and it just randomly clicked in my head, like, oh, Karai is actually Splinter's daughter. And like, it was so weird that I figured that out, and I'd never known that through all of TMNT, or just randomly finding it out. I just never heard it before. But for anyone who hadn't figured that out, I'm sure it was a great reveal. And the fight that they had, and just the conversation between Splinter and Shredder, that's one of the great, as far as I'm concerned, it's like one of the great fiction type of battles that you can always have in a show, with like Splinter versus Shredder, and then you have like Optimus and Megatron type stuff. Like those type of real battles are what you always want to see when you watch a specific show. You watch Transformers, you wait to see Optimus versus Megatron, and you watch Ninja Turtles, you wait to see in the beginning, of course, you wait to see the Turtles versus Shredder, because that's generally how it goes. And then you're really excited to see Splinter versus Shredder, because you know how it's gonna go. When they fight, Splinter always wins, but he'll never really kill Shredder, because that's not what Splinter does. But I love the fight that they had, and it was really dramatic. And I love how when Splinter went out, he had the hood on his cloak, and he just like beat up all the foot ninjas. He beat up the two guys whose names I can't remember. I know Zevers the fish, and I know the dog. I know his name is Brad. I can't think of his last name, but he beat them up just easily, and he was winning against Shredder, of course, until Shredder was like, your daughter. He was like, you took something from me, which was, of course, the woman he loved, and he was like, I took something from you, and it was Splinter's daughter. And after that, Splinter was just distracted, and Shredder was just beating him up over and over again. And once Splinter was able to calm down, he kind of went into using his rat abilities, which I thought was really cool because he was using his normal skills that he knew of ninjutsu, and like throwing shuriken and dodging Shredder shuriken or just dodging the blades and stuff. And then once he started to get beat up, he kind of went into like rat style pretty much. And it was kind of funny, like when he was doing like that, and it was like he was scratching at his face, but he was actually punching him and beating him up. I thought it was really cool. And one of the things that really interested me was Splinter's staff. How it was actually like a bunch of different weapons in one. Like at first he was just hitting people with it, and then when he actually started to fight Shredder, he had like a blade at the end, so it was like a katana, and like the top came off, so it had a rope on it to tie Shredder up. And I just thought that was a really interesting thing because I never would have expected that because we never get to see Splinter fight until this episode. So he's busting out all these moves, and then it's like this staff he has the whole time isn't just a staff as a weapon. It's it has like a blade in it, and it has the top comes off and it's a rope. And it was just a really cool little thing that they had, and hopefully in season 2 we'll get to see him use it more, and it's not just destroyed and gone now. And maybe he'll have a new one, or he'll just rebuild the blade from the staff. But either way, I hope we really get to see him fight more in season 2, which I'm sure we will. But I'm definitely excited for that. And as far as Splinter and Karai go, I'm definitely curious to see how that plays out. Like when Splinter left after Karai showed up, my dad asked me like, how come he didn't say anything to her? And at first I said I don't know, but like a second later I figured, well, he didn't, because there's no way she'd believe him anyway, because she's grown up, we'll say, she's probably like 16 or something. I really have no idea how old any of the characters technically are, but over 10 years old, obviously she's not gonna just believe him saying I didn't kill your mother and I'm actually your father. But I think maybe not season 2, but possibly season 3, if they go with some of the Super Shredder stuff where Shredder dies and some other things happen. Spoilers, I'll put spoilers for that. But some of the other things that happen, maybe then when Karai is in control, they'll have their moment where they get to talk, and Splinter's able to fully explain to her, like, I'm not just saying this, I wouldn't just keep saying it, I am actually your father, stuff like that. But for season 2, I know there's definitely going to be some story elements that are really well done with that, because the Turtles are obviously still going to be going up against Shredder and the Krang, and if they're going against Shredder, they're going to be going against Karai, so they're going to have that element of we're fighting Karai, and obviously Splinter's going to be telling them not to hurt her as much, or somehow he's going to find a way to say go easy on her pretty much, because he's going to be trying to figure out, how do I get my daughter from Shredder after she's pretty much been manipulated into thinking I'm the enemy. So I'm definitely excited to see how that goes. All the action and stuff was really well done. Even the Shredder and Splinter fight was great, but just the stuff the Turtles did, I love. The zero gravity stuff I thought was actually pretty cool. Even though there wasn't like a really long fight scene, I thought it was just well done how they used zero gravity to their advantage, and it looked pretty sweet. Them going to find April and stuff like that. One thing that I thought was actually really weird was April's father. I feel like he didn't have as big of a role as I was hoping he would. Because if you really think about it, he's only in the, I guess, first episode, since it's technically 2 episodes, they just put them together. But he's really only in that first episode, and once Donnie gets the little bug off his back, He's just in their cave, or in the tunnel, I mean, and they go off to save April, and I don't think he's seen again, even in the end of the very end of the second episode when they're doing like the whole little dance. I could have missed it, of course, but I don't think he's even in the background just watching them dance or anything like that. I think he's just he's not there at all, and I know he doesn't show up before that part. So I find it really weird that he was in the first episode, and obviously he's her father, so they did, like, I'm pretty sure they didn't even have a scene where when they got back to the tunnel, you know, her dad wasn't even there, if I remember right. And of course, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't there, like, at all. And I just thought that was really weird, especially considering he's her father, so obviously he has a big part in the story. But I did love what they did with him in the first half. I thought it was actually really well done. And like, I thought he was gonna go fight Splinter, and then it was like, I just have a message for you from Shredder. So I thought that was a nice little moment, for him, what they did with him. And then the turtles fighting against the Krang when they were trying to destroy the laser. I love that scene. Like, they have, of course, every episode has its funny moments. One of the things I liked, it was actually way before that, when they're in the car and Donatello's explaining something, and Mikey's like, "Oh, you have an answer for everything, don't you?" And he was like, "Yes, I do." And Ralph was like, "Good one, Donnie." And I just, for some reason, I really loved that scene. I thought it was hilarious. And another one of my favorite scenes, which was, of course, a more emotional one, is when Leonardo decided to sacrifice himself and save his brothers and save April. And what I thought was going to happen was they were actually going to end it where the Technodrome actually went back to Dimension X, because based off of TMNT, I know they do a lot of interdimensional stuff, so I thought it would actually go into Leonardo would actually end up being trapped in Dimension X, and he'd be training there, because I know he'd meet some people and stuff, and I thought he might end up going there, and then the Turtles would have to find a way to get him back in season 2. But instead of doing that, he destroyed the Technodrome pretty much blew up. They already destroyed it, but he survived and went back to his brothers, and it was pretty much a happy ending. And it wrapped up very well. It of course led to little bits and pieces here. Of course, led to the story for season 2. Karai being revealed as Splinter's daughter, obviously it's going to be important in season 2. And of course, the very end of end of the episode, the Technodrome isn't completely destroyed, and it lights up, and then the episode ends. But as a whole, the two parts, on their own, each episode was very well done. But of course, as a whole, as it was shown, it was a very, like, it was a perfect season finale. And honestly, I think the only problem with it is the fact that it's the season finale, because then we have to wait for next season, which is actually going to be in September, so we don't really have to wait long at all. So I'm actually kind of glad that they sort of had that really long space where they spread out the season, because now I think we only have to wait maybe a month, and then season 2 will start up. And if you saw the preview, Casey's coming in, so that should be really cool. And I already knew, before they ever mentioned Casey, I knew the dynamic for Casey was definitely going to be, he'd be competition for Donatello in some way. So I'm definitely excited to see how that plays out. But as a whole, the season was fantastic, and the season finale, it wrapped up perfectly. They had the Krang come in. They already had the couple of episodes leading up to the season finale where Shredder was working with the Krang. So of course they'll be working together throughout the rest of the series now. And we have Karai being revealed as the daughter, and just a ton of elements that are definitely going to come into play. And I'm definitely excited to see what we get. But for what we had for this season finale and the season as a whole, I definitely loved it. So let me know what you thought of the season finale. What did you think of the season as a whole? And as a random question, who's your favorite character in Ninja Turtles, period? And who's your favorite turtle? Thanks for watching.